It's time for the County Manager's Report, and with me is Interim County Manager Larry Werner. I'm Lloyd Higuera, and Larry, it's coming down to the wire here. It's almost over, the interim county managership.
It's been a wonderful gig, I guess I should say, but and I'm going to miss it. But yeah, I think this is kind of maybe our last get together.
It is.
The next time will be with the new county manager, Jim Nichols. So.
Right, and we'll talk about Jim in the context of our program today, because we're going to review two commission meetings, September 4 and September 18th, and we'll start with the one on September 4th. And on this one, commissioners heard an update on the status of the Douglas County Community and Senior Center. They also approved a donation of kitchen equipment for the new center, but they also had some really exciting news too, that the Community Senior Center is going to open ahead of schedule.
It really is, Lloyd, and it's kind of nice to hear that from a government project, and I think they're really proud of that fact that it's coming in ahead of schedule, and it's coming in at budget or under budget, actually. I think the opening date now is going to be December of 2014, December 6th. And at the time that Scott Morgan, the Parks and Recreation Director, or Community Services Director.
That's the one.
Yeah, I always get these confused. Was reporting it was 95, the community center, senior center was 95% complete, and they're ready to go, and it was really nice. I think he did a very nice job of kind of walking through and thanking folks for all their participation and help, and then he did talk about the donation that the Young at Heart organization provided to the county. It was roughly $154,000 worth of money for kitchen equipment and different accessories, so it was really, really nice.
And then he blew off a confetti bomb.
Yes, which started a lot of people. I was supposed to have let a couple of folks know, and I kind of forgot. Well, it was exciting for everybody. So.
Well, it went bang, and there was confetti everywhere.
That was fun.
All I could think about is the cleanup people that night. What did they do in here?
I think the commitment was we'd clean it up before they got there. So after the meeting was over, staff took care of that. So exactly.
Okay, so yeah, that is exciting. I mean, to finish under budget and ahead of time is almost unheard of in these projects.
That's true.
But it really has been well organized and well executed.
Yeah, there's been a really good group of people. I think CORE as the developer builder, and then Commissioner Lynn was kind of there to kind of bird dog it and be able to act a liaison between the board and the construction kind of activities with Scott Morgan and his staff, and it really came together well.
Let's move on to commissioners approving establishment of water rate fees and charges for the Douglas County Carson Valley Water Utility District for 2015 through 2019. Now, these are all the county-owned water systems.
That's correct. That's correct. And it was a little bit of a process. We started this back in April. I think actually it started earlier for the actual rates, probably back in March. And at that time, they were talking about a 3.25% rate increase. And we did hear, which probably people didn't recognize, what we ultimately ended up doing up at the lake is we did kind of a cost of service analysis and took the utility and determined what it cost to operate that utility. Not compared to anybody else, or not worried about subsidizing anybody else, but what did the Douglas County water system actually what it cost to operate it, and came up with the rate structure that way. And it dropped it down from 3.25% to 2.6%, which is still pretty nominal. I mean, in today's utility rate hikes, that's almost unheard of about how low it is. So, so we went through that, and then we held a couple of town hall meetings and tried to get the information out to folks. There was a lot of concern even at the meeting on the 4th that we should do something with other utilities around us, and we keep trying to explain again and again that these utilities are unique to themselves, what it costs them, the equipment it costs, the pipelines, those sorts of things. So their rate increases or not rate increases, and their rates are all based on that specific utility and not compared to like the Town of Minden or the Gardnerville Water Company or a different Round Hill, whatever GID, those sorts of things. So I think we got the majority of the people understanding that, and then a lot of the opposition kind of went away. Plus on these utilities, they're all metered, and people can actually control their cost by the amount of water that they use. So if the 2.6% increase is burdensome, then there's ways maybe to create an opportunity to not use so much water and reduce that by that same amount. So again, it's not a big number.
And so these rates now will be in effect for 2015 through 2019. Does that mean we don't revisit this again?
That's correct. It'll go up 2.6% each year for those 5 years. So, so for the 5 years is a 10, 13% increase, somewhere in that neighborhood. 12% increase. And, but it won't be revisited officially, but we will report back to the board about the condition of the fund, that either it's doing well and these rates are appropriate, or if there's something major that comes up that we have to report back, then it could change them. If there's a major equipment failure that we can't afford, or a new standard that comes down the line, and that's been the impact, the reason of the impacts, a lot of the rate increases have been some changed standards from the EPA. Probably appropriate, but just not quite anticipated. Uranium standards and the level of arsenic and those sorts of things. So barring those, these rates will stay in place for 5 years.
Okay. Well, we moved from water to sewer. Commissioners also approved at that same meeting increasing monthly sewer rates for the Douglas County sewer utility, again, 2015 to 2019.
That's correct, and it's the same analogy that was used on the Douglas County sewer system as it was for the water. In this case, though, the rate was 3.25%. That'll be 3.25% each year for those 5 years. But the same analysis, the same evaluation, again, that's what that utility cost. There was some discussion about anticipated growth and flows, and would there be a larger customer base sharing some of that cost. That didn't occur, but it's still the system owned by the people, and they still need to pay those rates. So, we kind of need to get that point across too, that even though had there been more growth, maybe you wouldn't have had the rate increase because you would have a bigger base to share the cost.
Sure.
But the reality is it wasn't there, and it is owned by that utility. So.
Okay. Well, Commissioners also approved an employment contract for our new county manager, James Nichols, and he'll be coming on board on the 29th?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Well, this is exciting, and so how long will you be around, or will you be leaving on the 29th?
I talked to Jim over last weekend. He was on his way on a vacation, and so we chatted before he left, and he'll actually be coming into town on the weekend, and we'll kind of help him get established in his office, and I'll get my stuff out of there. And although I can do it all in a shopping bag, I didn't move in a lot, but he'll get established. And then I agreed to kind of work with him Monday. The chairman of the Board of County Commissioners and I will meet with him first thing Monday morning and kind of just talk about some of the current issues and get an opportunity to introduce him to staff, which will occur. And then it's kind of however he wishes it. If he
Sure.
wants me to stick around, I'll stick around. If not, we'll be on call and see how it goes from there.
Well, from my observation of our various county managers, it seems like they come in and they want to take over right away. I mean, it's not like a huge, long transitionary type of thing.
That's correct.
I mean, they kind of jump in the fire.
And I think that's the nature of the beast. When you get up this level, you have your own way of doing things, and so the previous county manager may be doing perfectly fine, but you don't particularly are comfortable with the particular process. Sure. You may change and tweak things here. And so what I have found when I've either come in behind somebody or have left it for somebody else is just kind of do my own thing or let them do their own thing, and it seems to work out best. But be available. If something is really strange about why did you do this, you're able to answer that on a phone call and kind of explain what went on, give some background, but generally they'll jump right into it.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting
to
observe. Commissioners also gave final approval to an ordinance prohibiting medical marijuana establishments in Douglas County. So is that pretty much it for this issue?
That's it, right. The ordinance had a second reading. It is now law in the county, and the county at this point will not entertain applications for medical marijuana establishments. And again, the same argument that they use is the fact that Carson City will have some. So if people need medical marijuana, it's not that far to go to get medical marijuana, and as long as you have your card and your appropriate things, you can go into Carson and do that. So as you would with maybe other medical services, different kinds of CAT scans or MRIs, sorry.
MRIs are something you eat, I think.
I do that. I have a little trouble with tongue twisting, as I did at the last meeting at the lake. But yeah, I think that now that's kind of put to rest. Now, we're pretty sure, however, that this is not in a discussion at the legislature, and the ability to opt out may be revisited by the legislature, in which case we may have to come back and revisit this, but we're just not sure.
Okay. Now, is Carson City going to have more than one medical marijuana establishment, or do you know?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I was just curious.
I think they're allowed to have two, if I remember right, Lloyd. When I left there, I think under the population.
It's based on population.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Okay. Commissioners also gave final approval to an ordinance. This was for an indoor gun range. They made it an approved use because Douglas County had never addressed that before. So it's now an approved use, and somebody could apply for an indoor range with a special use permit.
That's correct.
And I guess there is a gentleman who is interested.
There was, and this now gives him the opportunity to proceed forward with an application. And as you stated there, he wanted to do this at an establishment, but it was silent. The zoning code was silent on whether or not you could. And it didn't kind of fit with our definition of indoor recreation, which is mostly ice skating rinks and roller skating rinks and those sorts of things. So they added it to the list of approved uses, and then provided the special use permit process to go through, which sets terms and conditions unique to that site that may need to be applied for everybody's safety and convenience.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I don't think there is a indoor shooting range down this end. I think Reno is the only place that has a indoor.
That's correct. There had been one, and it was either, I think, just inside Carson City at the Lyon County line going toward Dayton.
Oh.
And it wasn't in business very long. So I don't know. There seems to be a growing interest, though, in indoor gun ranges. I know, I think I've talked about my experience in the Pacific Northwest, and they're very popular up there. Of course, up there you're getting
Well, it's raining
all the time. Yeah, so you don't have to clean your gun so much. So.
Or have it rust up on you.
Exactly.
But yeah, we do have our outdoor range, but this will be something that'll add another dimension. And with more and more people carrying weapons these days, it'll be a real service to the community.
Yes, people need to know how to use them. I'm not going to.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to get out there and lecture or anything, but it kind of frightens me a little bit when you see a lot of people that really don't know how to operate a gun have one that they're carrying around with them. So.
No, you can you can go buy one as long as you have a clean record. But then shooting it and properly and everything is a whole nother
exactly.
Story. So. Okay, we'll move on to our next item here on that September 4th meeting. And commissioners approved the purchase of a new patrol boat and trailer for the Sheriff's Office to patrol Lake Tahoe. And the last boat sunk, didn't it?
Yes, yeah. Actually, I think there were two of Washoe County's boats and the Douglas County boat.
Yeah. Well, I think they were all used boats.
Right.
I mean, they had a whole life before
Yes.
They became patrol boats.
Yeah, Douglas County particularly. I think in talking to the sheriff and the undersheriff, this is the first new boat that Douglas County's ever purchased.
Yeah.
It's always been hand-me-downs from the Department of Wildlife or Coast Guard or somebody, and that lake is tough on boats. I mean,
sure.
If you're out there in that rough weather, I mean, you're really putting a lot of stress on those. So I think what happened in this case, well, they were spending, gosh, $6,000-7,000 a month during the summertime trying to keep it afloat, and finally, one of the seams just split open and down it went. So after talking about that and trying to deal with it, we finally said, it just makes no sense. And so they did do due diligence. I think this started when I got here in April, May, somewhere in that time frame. Maybe it was June that it happened. And the Sheriff's Office went out and did a really good job of trying to identify the used market, the new market, and who might have the most appropriate type of boat and how quickly could they get it and that sort of thing, and went through a really thorough process to identify this particular manufacturer and this particular boat. They're expensive. I mean, it's like $245,000 with a boat and trailer, but they come with a lot of equipment, and a lot of safety gear, and it's appropriate.
It's
So.
not a pleasure boat. I mean, it's a working boat, so it has all kinds of extra.
That's
equipment
exactly
on it.
right. Yeah, you don't want people out there trying to perform a rescue when you can't take care of yourself. So
Right.
it's really important to have the right equipment.
Okay. Well, I guess timing was good too because the season is ending on the lake, so they'll probably have the boat in time for the next season.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. Commissioners also approved changes to the Douglas County Code. This was to allow and set standards for solar photovoltaic facility in the county, and also certain properties in the county that can be used for that.
Right. I think it was, I don't want to say it's exactly similar to the indoor gun range. I think there were provisions that allowed solar photovoltaic facilities, but it kind of tightened up the rules and made it a little more appropriate for those that particularly wanted to install a facility and the neighbors that might see the impact of having a facility near them. So it was kind of taking both viewpoints in hand and trying to come up with a reasonable modification to the current county code. And I think they got there. I think it makes sense.
And with all the ranch land we have, and a lot of it being unproductive, that could be a good use.
Absolutely.
For providing income.
Right, absolutely.
And also generate electricity for your own property. And
Right. And there are some around the county. I mean, there's, I think off of Stephanie Way, when you go near the, I can't remember the name of the church that's right there off of Stephanie. Right next to it is a big photo array, but there are large lots there. I mean, there are 20-acre lots that are there. So you got some space on it. I think the concern is if you put a lot of these in on areas that have not necessarily enough room and you get a lot of reflective problems or just aesthetic issues. So it made sense.
Okay. Also, commissioners approved the adoption of the 2014 Douglas County Bike Plan. This was funded and prepared by Nevada Department of Transportation, and it's for areas outside the Tahoe Basin.
Correct. So yeah, a lot of effort went into that between the planning department and the different users, trying to come up with a countywide plan that now we can, good for capital improvement funding and for obviously for getting information out to folks on recreational uses. So, well done job by the planning department working with NDOT.
Yeah, it's nice to see though bike paths and walking trails and things all being discussed and moving ahead now in the county.
It's nice to see, yes, and to see a lot of these tied together where you can actually go from point A to point B, destination. So that's really is a
the
great
connectivity
feature.
is the whole game. I mean.
Exactly.
Okay, one more from that September 4th meeting. That's commissioners giving direction for developing a regional flood control reservoir for Buckeye Creek flows on the Douglas County Sewer Improvement District property. That's in the East Valley. Has there been some problem in that area?
It's actually kind of a twofold issue. I think the first one is that the Douglas County Sewer Improvement District, DCSID, is in need of expanding its reservoir capacity for effluent. And it had an agreement with, I don't know if it's MGSD or one of the others, I think it was MGSD, that they could use a portion of their pond. Boy, I may have that wrong. But anyway, there was existing ponds that they could take advantage of as long as the growth was kind of slowed down and the generation of effluent wasn't rising rapidly. But they could see the writing on the wall that if they didn't create another pond for their own use, that they might have trouble in the future. And the standards nowadays for constructing ponds is much more onerous than it was in the past. They have to be lined, you have to have all kinds of issues. So what they thought, and it makes sense, is they ought to start on that process early. And to do that, one of the things they looked at was this actually could become a materials extraction site, a gravel pit.
I see.
So if they can get approval and the nod that the county would kind of support the concept, they'll make the application then to go through and have this as a gravel pit to then take the material that they would extract out of there that would ultimately end up being their pond. And as they saw that happening, they thought that actually there was a need for a couple of ponds. One of them could be a flood control basin of similar size that the pond they needed, that they could then construct both of these and then end up with an extra pond that they had refurbished. So it turns out that with the extraction of materials, we can end up with a effluent reservoir, a flood control reservoir, and DCID pays for this with a lot of the materials that they extract from this. Now, this is a 20-year vision. I mean, it's not something that's going to happen overnight because it depends on the amount of gravel that's being taken out. But then the county's commitment would be to fund a portion of the influent structure and the outflow structure of the flood control pond. But that would certainly regulate any downstream flood issues with Buckeye Creek. So it turns out to be a little complicated process, but ultimately both DCSID and Douglas County come out ahead on this.
Well, it sounds like a big project. Lots of heavy equipment.
It is.
Right up your alley.
Exactly. Exciting stuff.
We'll move on to the September 18th meeting. This was up at Lake Tahoe. And on the 18th, commissioners decided on a process to select a person to fill the unexpired term of former clerk-treasurer Ted Thron, who has resigned.
That's correct. When we first brought Ted's resignation to the board, and I don't know whether I was the instigator of it or not, but somewhere along the line, we got the idea that we had to make an appointment within 30 days of his resignation, which would have been September 1st. It turns out that that wasn't the case, but in the meantime, we had started an application process, and I think we gathered about 12 names of people that were interested in becoming clerk treasurer, and we thought, well, how do we vet these? How do we set up a process? And so one of the ideas was we could have all 12 of them be interviewed in front of the Board of County Commissioners, which usually is not productive. It's a time-consuming too, right? So as we got looking into it more and more, we took a look at the process that we used to appoint Tom Perkins to the Justice of the Peace. Again, it was an elected position, it was a midterm situation, and they actually came up with a process where they took applications, required more information than you would need if you were going to just run for office, but it gave then the board the ability to kind of rank, or have this committee and report back to the county manager to rank what they saw were, say, the top 3 candidates, and then take those top 3 to the Board of County Commissioners and have them interview the top 3 and make a selection there. So we thought that really is appropriate for this one as well, to do some kind of a vetting process out ahead of that. I'll kind of open it up again, have the applicants fill out more information, then I'll appoint, or Jim actually will appoint a committee that would then interview, review the backgrounds, and then make a recommendation to him. He in turn then would report that to the county commissioners.
But that does take quite a bit of time to do all that, doesn't it?
We think we can get that done in probably less than 60 days, which is kind of a target. We're trying to get it done before the November election. So I think if it comes together now, we can do it pretty rapidly. So.
Okay.
But still, it's going to be a couple months, yes.
Yeah, okay. Commissioners also approved moving ahead with an outreach effort to Douglas County's general improvement districts to gather information and make sure the GIDs are in compliance with Nevada law.
Well, yes, and that's what triggered that is that I've received a couple of letters, I guess, of trying to sort out what to do with it. With the GIDs. One of them was from the Topaz Ranch Estates GID, who said that they had no ability to fill one of their trustee positions and are now submitting it to the county to make that appointment, which is required by state law. And at the same time, I had a call from another constituent of another GID that was having trouble and couldn't find where the meetings were being held and some other kinds of things. And that triggered us looking at the statutes and saying, oh, you know, the meetings are supposed to be held within the GID. They have to have at least one annual meeting, and the trustees need to be bonded, and so several statutory things that the county is kind of responsible for seeing occurs. So we thought, well, rather than bring each one of these forward every time something occurs, let's reach out and see if we've got issues out there that we need to sit down and try to figure out how to address. So that's what the information is that this item leads to.
Okay, and we have a fair amount of GIDs in this county.
We do. In fact, I just compiled a list. I should have brought it with me. We have 28 districts altogether. There are 15 GIDs. There are 4 utility, sanitary, or water districts, 3 fire districts, and there are some special districts such as mosquito abatement, weed control, and then the 3 towns. They're all kind of in that same category, but out of that there are 28 deals. So we're going to deal with the 15 GIDs at this stage, just say, you know, what's the status there, and as I don't have time, that's how we are, but one of the things that we're doing today is we've been requested by NACO, the Nevada Association of Counties, to take a look at, are there being problems filling seats because of the term limits. Then Nevada law terms out all these officials after 12 years. And so we're asking the question, do you have vacancies on your board of directors or your board of trustees? And are those vacancies caused by term limits, and are you able to fill them, or do you have people on the ballot? So we're asking those questions to see what kind of a problem may be out there.
Commissioners also upheld the Community Development Director's decision to suspend a vacation home rental permit at State Line. Right,
and basically this particular vacation home, the owner had not complied with the rules that are required to have a vacation home, with the advertising requirements and with controlling the renters. There had been 54 complaints filed since 2010 and about 23 since in 2014 about noise, parking, and that sort of thing. So they basically said, we're going to revoke your license for 90 days to give you an opportunity to get this all caught up and get squared away, and then you can reapply. And as long as you've done all the things you're supposed to, then we'll allow you to go ahead again. So.
Okay. Well, also, Commissioners approved a service agreement between Douglas County and FIWI Communications for 6 strands of fiber optic at a cost of $100,000. Now, is that the county's fiber?
Correct. It's the fiber that the county received 6 strands of a fiber optic cable that was put in by Digital 395, and for allowing them to occupy county right-of-way and do those sorts of things, the county then was given these 6 strands. This contract now is actually to take those 6 strands and use them throughout the county, to tie in different county facilities. I believe there's a potential for like the town of Minden, maybe the school district, those sorts of things. So we felt that it's appropriate to go ahead and get this going for the $100,000 contract, and then as people connect up to it, they may help share in that. But right now it's a county commitment. So.
Okay. And lastly, at that meeting up at Tahoe, commissioners accepted grant funding from the U.S. Department of Justice on violence against women in the amount of $470,000. And I guess this is for an ongoing program?
Right, that's correct, Lloyd. The District Attorney's Office, the data that I saw showed the first grant, I think, was in 2007. It was for about $4.5 million. And since then, they've reapplied for the several different grant cycles and have been able to pretty much sustain that same amount of grant, which is unheard of under the economy in the federal budget, and which speaks volumes to how effective this program has been and how well it's been received by the grant authority. So it's really a job well done to the district attorney for what he's been able to do with this, and also to be able to use it to a very, very appropriate reason. So.
Now the program is funded every year by the same grant?
Yes.
And so how many years has that been, do you know, offhand? I mean,
well, it's been 7 years then, probably.
7?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And the grant continues?
Yes, yes.
So it must be an excellent program.
It is.
To continue to get funded.
A lot of agencies have not been able to, so
Yeah.
it does. It speaks volumes for the DA's program.
Sure does.
So.
Okay, well, Larry, that pretty well covers the September 4th and September 18th meetings of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. And as you mentioned at the top of the show, this will be your last county manager's report, as our new county manager is coming on board. Really been a pleasure working with you for the past 6 months. I can't believe that went by like lightning.
Oh, it's been fun, Lloyd. I've really enjoyed it.
Okay, well, again, thank you for all the information you share here on the County Manager's Report. That'll wrap up the report. I'm Lloyd Higuera for Interim County Manager Larry Werner, and we'll see you next time on the County Manager's Report.